Welcome to this analysis video of the February 2, 2024 all about 3.23 patch. They really put all their cards on the table for this quarterly. Thank you to my long-term subscribers for sticking around. Be sure to like and also comment down below if you think my analysis, if you want to go deeper on something. I gladly talk here on Discord and on Reddit. All right, let's get right into it.
The arrow, I really like the arrow. Is going to be in the range of about 2 million per USC. It's a combat ship, it's high performance ship, so obviously somebody that can drive that ship worked very hard to get that ship, and they can be proud of owning that ship. Connie, it's a very good example because a lot of our players like that ship. I think it's in the range of 10 million now. Yeah, the Hammerhead is going to be about 45 to 50 million USC. It's a multi-crew ship, so I can see players pulling their resources together to buy such a
890,
for example.
For example.
You like the nicer things in life.
Oh well, I'm just trying to work the sticker shock here. So Origin, fancy manufacturer, 890, super big on the size. What are you thinking? I'm just gonna hold my alpaca here.
Let's make a list. Do you want gold on the walls? Do you like the marbles in the bathrooms?
What do you need? Give me the worst case scenario. What are we thinking? Worst case scenario?
No, we are talking about luxury. We are talking about Origin, a manufacturer that it's famous for putting so much care and so much quality in their ships, and I'm thinking in the range of 70 million USC.
Okay.
Somebody that has an 8 jump, they can be proud of it.
So what you're hearing here is the culmination of nearly a decade of economy changes. In the end of this video, I'm going to have a link to my economy breakdown of an interview Chris Roberts did years ago with a wonderful community member who detailed a lot of this information. Chris kind of was off the cuff talking about how a multi-tool or a one-hand weapon or something like that would cost very little, maybe even like an hour's salary for somebody working on a ship versus, I'm paraphrasing here, but like versus a aircraft carrier or some other, fighter jet or something, maybe a certain price, millions and then billions, etc. for the aircraft carrier. This is what is desirable for the economy to make sense. The team you're hearing from here is the actual, as Jared put it, the men in the trenches that are over there handling a lot of the economy work. And we rarely ever hear from them. So I highly recommend that you give them a little bit of grade on a curve here. They're being very honest, they're being very forthcoming, and they're noting major economy changes. Because whenever you talk ships, in-game ship prices, we're talking huge tectonic plate shifting of what is doable for players and organizations. 2 million for an arrow. The Pisces series, right before this, he's talking about being about 500K, and the C8R, he wants to bring the price down on that so you can have more rescue folks. And then on the higher end of the spectrum, you got the Connie starting to go around 10 mil. And obviously, I infer from that the Phoenix will be the highest priced one, past most of them, probably double that or half, 15 mil or something like that. I'm inferring, I'm just because the price will stratify. The Taurus, being the hauler with the least equipment on board, that's high-end advanced stuff, will be less, and then the Aquila and the Andromeda will kind of have different types of equipment based on combat or science, and then the Phoenix being luxury brand, having more luxury equipment on board, a PDS system if they keep that, and a nicer snub it comes with, probably jacking the price up. Interestingly, more telling to me is on the super high end of this, where a Hammerhead is going up to 45 to 50 mil estimated in these what the economy team is talking about, and also 70 mil give or take. But they remember, this is off the cuff, it's not official numbers, but this is where their mindset's going. 70 million for an 890 jump in 3.23. So if you've got some UEC laying around, now's the time to buy ships, because long-term persistence, they should make it through. Should. And then if they don't, you can always file a petition and hope for the best. But it's not guaranteed. But these ships that you buy in game, the value of UEC is going to be less if you can't buy ships. What the economy team kind of hinted at there was that you should be very proud about having these ships. Like, for example, in the 890 jump, I left that in because I thought that was a good point. And also a valid point is the noting that players can work together. Like, for example, the Hammerhead being a multi-crew vessel really meant for a small org to work together. They could pool their money and use the transfer system to transfer. I'm inferring use the transfer system in your Mobi-Glass to transfer money, a UEC that you all earn into kind of a pot where one person can then buy the Hammerhead. Maybe you can have a second person then, okay, we're going to help Joe now go get it. And Joan is going to get one right after that. So we're going to have, multiple ships that we can suddenly work towards as a group. And now there's more and more incentives for people to want to band together because they have, hey, my personal goals can be met by being part of an org that's kind of at the same mindset as me. Cool. So I want to take part in more mining. I want to take part in more combat missions. I want to be part of these things. That's hopefully the way we're working towards. Also, it reinforces that the value of purchased with with money and by extension credit ships are worth. By increasing the UEC purchase power of these things, by decreasing the UEC's value by bringing up the ship prices, it brings the value of that ship up. There will be, of course, some winners and losses that you will find, but what I think is most important here is you don't want to see a news article from one of the wonderful gaming journalisms that just love picking on Star Citizen, where it's talking about like somebody bought a heavy fighter for 250 USD and you can make that in an hour and just buy one. And everyone's a fool for getting one. And the person that that's their only ship, they're going to feel really, really upset about that. Certainly have a negative part of their experience if that's their only ship they backed with, other than their game package, right? So I think it's interesting that they're kind of curving it, and it makes sense that starter ships are much more accessible. Combat ships that are really, top tier for their needs or close to top tier tend to start garnering some real millions of UEC, and then true multi-crew larger ships that have more potential, more power, more eminence, let's say, for the luxury, will be much more expensive. And both the economy team and Jared couched all of this with a note that this is a pass to try to show and reflect where we're going. This is not final. This is just a test. They want feedback. They welcome feedback. They expect feedback. So please, if you don't agree with this, certainly put a comment below, but also be sure to put it on Spectrum. So when the patch notes start coming out, when they start hitting the PTU with the real prices, or what at least it's looking like prices, you can start hitting it there before it hits live. So be sure to offer feedback. And don't just write, I don't like this. This is just my recommendation. You do you. But my recommendation is actually note why. Hey, I don't like this ... because I'm finding a bunch of solo guys flying moles out in the mining areas in the belt, and they're just leaving them because they're worth nothing now. I'm just picking a random example, an extreme example, but I'm just saying, if you're seeing a negative impact on your gaming experience because of these changes, because ships are cheaper in some cases or more expensive in some cases, hey, it's taken me forever to be able to feel any kind of advancement in my profession past my ROC and my prospector because the mole's so expensive now. Things like that I could definitely see people really weighing in on. And I'm purposely picking on professions that are non-combat, because combat, I can just take somebody else under my wing and just go, look, hey, party up with me. We'll go over, we'll blow some stuff up, have a good time, finish some contracts. Maybe we'll find some loot in the cargo hold of the pirates we take down, the NPCs, whatever, and have a fun time. Versus if you're doing industrial stuff, you're really min-maxing your costs. So suddenly the next ship that you're all planning to get is suddenly 6 times the cost. It may dramatically change what a small organization, even pulling its cash, UEC can do. So I feel like there's a lot to unpack here in this very short thing. One other thing before I continue, and I'm only going to mention this maybe once or twice in this video. They said that this is a summary video for the next 7, maybe even 8 weeks of content. So Jared kind of has like a basic plan in his mind about how he wants to put these together, and I'm sure he's lining up interviews and such. And remember, those can change at any time based on the needs of the PU, based on the needs of Squadron, whatever. But expect more about this, because this is a major change, and I hope people are talking about it. I haven't done my research on the community videos yet, but I don't really need to. It's a big change, and I understand what's happening. You know, we have a huge economy change for the ships, and that's absolutely critical. All right, let's keep moving.
It's taken us a while to get to master modes.
Yep.
And not everyone is. I think it's safe to say not everybody is completely on board with the idea. You know, I can read Spectrum, I can read Reddit and whatnot. There seem to be just as many people who are for the idea as against.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this.
I mean, it's a big change, right? And people are always, you know, initially going to be resistant to it. And I think that's very, very natural, because you've been playing a game for such a long time, and it's such a big change that you're going to have to relearn a lot of the things that you've already learned before. But ultimately, again, this was another thing that has come around from us playing the game, especially in like combat-focused scenarios in Squadron, and going through and going, you know, like, hey, we feel like change needs to be made. So just a very, very, very high level of what master modes are. As essentially you have navigation and 2 SCM modes that you switch between, and they have very defined purposes with how you fly your ship. And what this has allowed us to do is in SCM, which is essentially your combat mode, is we've made it so the combat is able to be a little bit tighter, because we've got a bit more control over the ship speeds there. That combat is a lot more personal, a lot tighter, and we felt that it felt for a much more visceral and a lot more personal and experience with whoever you're fighting. And obviously that's translated to player versus player combat as well, which again, we've been testing internally quite a lot. And it's avoiding situations where you're able to essentially exploit the flight system to kind of constantly play chase and not really have a proper, you know, one-on-one combat with someone, and you're constantly running away and not running away. So we felt that it was a positive change as we've been playing the game. So yeah,
I think from my limited experience with it, it gets more exciting the more players that get involved. It's certainly fun 1v1, but when the furball starts, when, you know, we're testing some things that where, you know, more and more players are jumping in and stuff like this, and when I'm seeing the battles with like 15 people involved, 25 people involved, it keeps them all tight and compact.
Yep.
And literally the screen can be filled with ships this way, and it's a much more visceral experience.
It's a game changer. We've got such beautiful ships. We've got amazing VFX that, you know, when you're shooting at someone, you typically in the past haven't really been able to see, because you're, you know, hundreds of meters, if not kilometers away from people. It seems a real shame to not be able to see some of that stuff. You're basically just interacting with the UI. So this bringing you closer together is just a much better feeling experience in our opinion.
So master modes on track 323.
At the moment, yeah.
Mark it off.
And we want a lot of feedback, so, and we will get it, I'm sure, but yeah, closer already, and now you're zooming in on your target, you can see much more of the ship. So if you're in a combat scenario where you're flying around and having to maneuver a lot and you're dealing with multiple targets, you might not necessarily want to use it too much, but if I'm in a situation where you're flying a Cutlass and I'm trying to take one of your engines off, I can toggle into precision targeting mode and go straight for your engines if I wanted to, just take out your engines, get on board and deal with you that way. Ships are going to have gimbals, or all weapons are going to have gimbals. Weapon slots of ships are going to have gimbals. So that's not entirely true. I'm going to contradict myself already.
Yeah, there are a few
couple of exceptions. You know, you look at the Idris, it's got a massive railgun on it. It's not going to be rotating around everywhere. It's
the nose gun on the Vanguard.
Yeah, so there are a few that are going to be stuck as they are, but what we kind of had thought about for a while that we weren't too keen on is the swap down and swap out for the different weapons, and exchanging the gimbal out for that, basically, because new players come in and it's not immediately understandable what's going on there, and we didn't really feel like it was adding as much value.
So 3.23 having gimbals for almost every single ship in the game, if not most weapons, including turrets, by the way, is not the end of the world. Neither is this precision shot thing where you press a button, it zooms you in, and press a button again, it goes out. That's a nice little quality of life thing. But when you talk about master modes and then combine it with the gimbals and some other things you keep changing, um, it's concerning because master modes in itself is going to create a massive change to the game, self-admittedly by CIG's devs. And unfortunately, I have extremely limited experience with master modes because it really has not filtered down to the PU, and it needs to be on all ships for it to really matter. I mean, yeah, you could have maybe one straggler ship and just say, look, we just can't get to that one yet. That's fine. But the majority of ships need to have it fully integrated for us to even start testing this. And putting it in Arena Commander or some other game mode is not testing it. It needs to be in PU with people interacting with each other, people dealing with missions, people using it day in, day out, and then we can actually start seeing, is this a better game or not? Because you're changing the game, you're simplifying it. For those who don't know, Master Modes means you have to get much closer to your enemies, as detailed directly by the dev here. And the other factor here is that it also can change how you can escape or not. Basically, in order to try to escape, you have to lower your defensive shields to attempt to get away. And then when you want to tussle with people, you have to slow yourself down. So, multiple mechanisms of escape or playing skirmishing, I'll call it, or boom and zoom if you're from the plane sim community, are much lessened by this technology. By forcing people to slow down and stay in this fight zone, um, it's going to change things a lot, especially for smaller ships, I would argue, small and medium ships in particular that rely on speed to survive are going to suffer dramatically. And particularly the smaller the fighter with less redundant systems is going to suffer the most. They mention a Vanguard, for example, not getting a gimbal on its front weapon, but ironically, the Vanguard, I believe, this has to be tested, but based on how things are going, once the Vanguard's redundant systems are considered, and you actually can zoom in and knock out its engine or something, but it has another, and zoom in and knock out its cooler, but it has another. And then also, of course, its armor is eventually implemented. It's going to be quite a juggernaut in this more short-range weapon platform. I don't know how I exactly feel about master modes. I'm actually maybe slightly negative towards them, to be honest, but that's just because I haven't touched it yet. I might really enjoy getting in there and tussling. I can think of games like EVE Online where you have what was called the Brawler Doctrines, where you had Brutix battle cruisers and ships that were just basically designed to get extremely close to the enemy and literally try to face hug them and fight them under their gun's optimal range, trying to make missile ships that want to stay at range from you and trying to give themselves time to take you down because they don't suffer from range mechanics, short or long, to a certain extent, make them suffer. So having super short range, high DPS or high alpha weapon systems like blasters and such were valuable but high risk. In this situation, the way they're describing it is most, if not all, ships in the game are not going to be able to do much damage to you unless they're super close to you. So the ships that can do the most damage and have the most staying power through armor, redundant systems, damage control on larger military class vessels versus civilian or retrofitted civilian vessels comes to mind, are going to do best if it stays this way. And ships that are like ships of the line, like the Jav, are going to be huge winners because they can just stay and they can just park themselves and just go, look, I'm not leaving. You all can try, but I'll take you down when you try to run away. And once again, I think this is going to be balanced, and do not rate the capabilities of this based on an NPC ship. I believe what Jared was alluding to about the 25v25 is maybe the rumored situation that we've heard. There was rumors going around that they were testing out a new Idris fight, and that's something that's been kind of floated around, I think since the last patch cycle. Ever since we've heard rumors that they had the another Idris kind of being tested out for in-game and such. As I understand it, would be an NPC or developer ran Idris, not player run, but The idea is that you'd fight over it with ships and then get inside and fight over it on foot, if the rumors are to be believed. Now, we'll see. If 3.23 has that as some exciting new thing, I welcome it. Anything but Siege of Horus, and I'm just so Siege of Horus in doubt. But for master modes in particular, we need a core anything like that. We need a environment where a lot of players are suddenly heavily encouraged to fight each other, and also against NPCs, and it is all in an environment that is in ships, not on foot, in ships, or at least starts on ships, because we need those statistics on master modes. We suddenly need a tremendous amount of fighting to happen, PvP and PvE, so we'll call it PvX, that needs to happen in this environment in order for us to truly test master modes and know what's going on. As I said in the previous one, be sure to give feedback as the CIG requested, and I just really hope it gets in our hands soon, and we can really hopefully fine-tune this master modes technology before it becomes commonplace, and I hope it's not something that really breaks the game. Now, on a smaller note, like I said, the gimbals weren't that big of a change until you go saying everyone's going to be super close to each other. Gimbals are very useful at keeping targets in line, and it used to be where you had to use lower size weaponry on a gimbal, and only certain things could be gimbaled, only certain mounts were gimbalable, and you had to go buy the gimbal, then buy the weapon, load them on. It was a whole thing. I do think this is okay to simplify. I do also like the fact that most things will be gimbaled. One of the things I thought was interesting is there's going to be some edge cases. Like the 325A has that big old extra-sized Gatling gun on the front. I'm curious if that's going to be gimbalable, because suddenly that would make it a little more competitive, which it really needs. And I'd like to see gimbaled for mounts too, utility mounts. So just I don't think weapons should be the only ones that enjoy this. I think that there should be gimbals on anything that doesn't. So 315P, for example, has a non-gimbaled tractor beam. It's like a fixed tractor beam face forward. I'd like to see that be gimbaled, unless it's already been fixed. I'd like to see that. So that's just off the top of my head. I'm sure there's many other ships that you can think of that are going to benefit from this gimbaled system, or maybe not. Maybe they're left behind. They do note later on in the video that things that look like they literally would like go through the edge of the ship or something to try to gimbal obviously will not be gimbaled. And the big examples they kept using was the front of the Vanguard and the front of the Idris, because they're like spinally mounted weapon systems for the Idris, and it's a size 10 railgun or beam laser if you're talking about the Idris K kit, a module. Or if we're talking about the Vanguard, it's more of like baked into the weapons platform. Okay, so let's keep it moving.
You know, how we felt previously about the old EVA system is that it wasn't really up to scratch. The player experience and just the feel of the movement wasn't really as responsive and as basically easy to use as we essentially want. So as the game's evolving, we're finding that we're going into these environments where we're making tighter turns, we're going through wreckages, we're trying to do things like that. And if you think about the old EVA system, because you're flying around so upright, you kind of have a silhouette of movement that's kind of like my forearm here. But if you think about it now, because we're going into what we've kind of called the Iron Man pose internally, where you're kind of leaning forward, your arms are down by your side, your silhouette is more like this. So you're facing directly forwards. And what that means is, obviously, if you're going through tighter spaces, it's a lot easier. When you're rotating, you're no longer rotating like this, you're kind of more rotating like this, so you can fit through those gaps easier, and you're not bumping into things quite as often. And then on top of that, if you're winding your way through, you're almost mirroring a bit like a snake-like motion, and obviously you can kind of fit through all those tight gaps and turns and things like that too.
I'm just going to bookend this. So the EVA system he's describing, in case you didn't see the video that was yesterday's video on the YouTube side, is good. I think the EVA system where you're swimming forward, or Supermaning as some people are saying it as, is neat. It's very elegant, and I welcome it. I think it makes a lot more sense for EVA mechanics. And also the day on Thursday, what they detailed was that you can actually touch the sides of a ship. They're going to work on that eventually, where you can get like a grip, so you can move yourself up and down, like as if you're climbing a ladder with your arms on the sides of on the exterior of a ship, which is a great quality of life improvement. And it's not just ships. I think they showed landing pad and such with Pearson technically moving themselves around. It also means that you're going to have less injuries that you sustain by accident. So if you've been EVAing through like a busted ship, especially like an NPC soft dead ship or something like that, and your EVA is just literally chewing up all its fuel, and you're bumping into walls, and you get like a tier 3 injury, and you're like, this is ridiculous. Your camera's spinning because you're spinning. Being able to dynamically move, shoot, and also don't forget, if your character can shoot, they can use a tractor beam properly. They can spin themselves around and tractor beam the goodies out of a ship, out of a specific area of a ship, and maneuver it out the side of a ship or the back of a ship or whatever's busted open, so you can use it and get it out of there. So, and also medical tools and other fun things, so you can save people. So, or repair the ship if it's not fully soft dead. But it somehow lost its gravity. So that'd be a fun mission. I hope to see someday. So that's an example of some of the very interesting things that the EVA system can do. I didn't want to just glaze over it with this smaller summary, and I look forward to seeing it in 3.23. It's a major tentpole, I think, thing for 3.23. We've all been really waiting for, and have our moment to enjoy the EVA mechanics that are truly badly needed. I think being able to playfully traverse space in a more elegant manner is critical for the game. Want to note that they confirmed later on in this video that 3.23 will not have the climbing with the hands and push-pull mechanics in this patch, unfortunately, for 3.23. I like that. Once again, I like the transparency and the honesty of what their targets are for the patch. And I think this is something that, once again, the EVA system overhaul is still really great, and it'll be even better when we have those capabilities. As a reminder, what I was referring to is being able to move yourself up and down the side of a ship with your hands, or along the side of like a broken space station or something like that, like in Pyro, and not waste your fuel in order to do the same thing and quickly be able to move up and down. And then that would be more of a clean way to traverse between an EVA space into a gravity space very quickly. And then also you have the option to EVA. So just bear that in the back of your mind.
We used to just have the super plain interaction stuff. You remember the old use thing that was in the middle of the screen? And it used to just be, looking back on that now, it was quite inappropriate because you would hit use and hope that it was the correct action that, it did. Is it going to pick it up? Is it going to open it? Is it going to close it? What's going to happen? So that obviously wasn't very clear. And as the game evolved and the items and the way you interact with the items got more kind of in depth, and you could do 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different things with the same item, the necessity came to basically have a selection there. So that's basically where we ended up with the system that is currently in Star Citizen at the moment, where we've got the list. Now, obviously, playing with that for such a long time, we eventually got to a point where we were saying, we could definitely do better here, and it's something that we've wanted to do for quite a while. So that's where the player interaction experience comes in, where we are now condensing this down into one single use action. But unlike the old use action, you get a verb that essentially tells you what it is you're going to do. And that also ties into default item actions. So I could look at all of these items on your desk, right? All of them might be very different from each other. Your laptop might be like the old school use action, which would tell me that I'm probably going to hop down and start typing on the laptop. That folder there might be more like a pickup action or an inspect action if it's something that's like a data pad, if there's an iPad on the table or something like that. And that allows us to basically look at all of these different item types that we've got in data and say, this is what we think the default item action for this thing should be. But again, in ISC, something really cool that we showed off is the ability to customize that as well. So we're not getting rid of all of the big list of actions that we previously had that were quite difficult to navigate through, especially in like situations like combat. Combat is obviously something that we've seen a lot of in Squadron.
Hold on, I'm in the middle of the fight. Let me go through this long list of things here while I'm getting shot.
Yeah, you can envision how that generally goes. And again, through the game evolving comes the necessity to change it, right?
It's another reference to a Squadron 42 thing that they brought over, or they're working to bring over, where you'll use that same kind of wheel system to a certain extent to access items. But if you don't hold F instead of just pressing it, just press it, you can just instantly open it up on your default action for that item. And you can also set like 2 preset defaults on the item, if I remember right, for the for this personal inner thought system. So these inventory management tools are good to have. I do agree that the list is a little frustrating the first few times. Like, you literally hold down F, you're dragging your mouse across these things, the screen shaking for any reason, or it just decides not to accept what you clicked. And then, like, instead of storing the thing, you holster it, or instead of holding onto it, you drop it on the floor. I've had that happen many times to me over the years. And the biggest thing to remember here is that I think we should give this a chance and really try to embrace it as best we can if it ends up making the quality of life better for the players. I think the radial system is going to be easier for your eyes to follow, and also it'll be more VR friendly down the line. So a lot of systems, when you open up in VR, they tend to be circular or some other shape, and you can easily move your gesture towards something. Just a small thought I had that that's really in the weeds and, only slightly relevant here, but I thought it's worth mentioning. Once again, you have one or two default options you can choose, and you can change those for what you want to do. And yesterday's video, they talked more in depth, and they talked about how, like, they want it so if you're mining and you, in the last 3 times you got a rock of a specific kind, and your default action was to pick it up. The game, by setting things as default, so to speak, the game remembers what you want to do. So not every player may have like an inspect as their option, but you do, to complete your work without having to constantly radial menu every single time you want to pick something up or inspect it or store it or whatever you're going to do with the product. So different types of items should have the huge list of things that it knows you want to do with it. Another example they used was the weapon racks, being able to quickly access and store things in the rack and take away from the rack and grab. I want to mention, though, once you have stuff set up in the racks already, it's pretty easy to grab it. You hold down F, you click on what you need, and it pops into your hand. Putting it back is the adventure, at least based on maybe it's just my luck, I don't know, but I just wanted to mention that too.
Let's talk about the visor and lens stuff. In ISE yesterday, players saw a little bit of the 3D Minimap and the corner and some visor stuff. 323?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so basically Visor and HUD is going to be a big restyle. So I think the big task at the moment is restyling it for the persistent universe. Yeah, just a few features essentially. We have like the existing hint system that we've got in game. That's all being tidied away into the new notification system that we've got with high and low priority notifications, where we've got some really nice visuals for those. We've obviously got the newly reworked, I'm going to call it like the combat stack. That's what I quite like calling it. Yeah. No one else calls it that, but basically it shows you where all your ammo is, gives you all your feedback for your weapons, changing items, things like that. It shows you what's in your hands.
Let's make it a thing. Let's all agree to call it the combat stack for JJ, who's doing such a good job here today.
Then on the left-hand side, we've obviously got all the widgets for things like, your health, environment, all that sort of stuff. We've got the compass that's going in too, which is, we've got the compass. It's in the video, and the minimap is amazing. It really is, and it links into what we're doing, which we can talk about in a little bit, with the StarMap on the mobiGlas 2, which is basically the area map. I'll make very clear now, we're not doing all locations.
Yes, I was just about to hit that.
With the minimap, because obviously there is a lot of space and areas to mark up.
Yes, I was going to say, let's talk about that. The minimap does not just exist in a vacuum.
Yep.
Every single location in the persistent universe has to be marked up in order to feed that information into the minimap. I'll go ahead and say, because I talked to John Crew about this just yesterday, the ship team is working diligently to get as many of the ships as possible marked up for 323.
Same with landing
zones. You can at least explore your ships with the mini-maps and stuff, and then maybe a couple locations here and there. And then that will just continue. Patch after patch after patch will just continue to mark up more and more locations until eventually all of the PU reaches parity.
Yep, so it's going to be really easy to find your way around everywhere once it's done. So, new StarMap. Yeah, so big quality of life improvement from where we're at right now. And again, you know, we're changing it because it's the current StarMap is difficult to use. It's not clear, you know, you don't get enough feedback. Like some things are broken, you know.
He said some things are broken.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But yeah, we've spent a lot of time on styling it, making it very clear, making it very easy to use, done a lot of testing ourselves of just playing around with it. We've added some new features to it too. So essentially a estimated travel time if you set a route somewhere, search functionality, which is all fairly basic to start with. We'll obviously come back more on that later, but down the line. But essentially, you know, if I want to go to Hurston, I type in Hurston, it takes me to Hurston on the map.
So 3 major quality of life improvements. The visor ties into the Minimap and many other things. There will be these technologies that you can see on there that will give you a lot of information about your status, what's going on, with a complete redesign of like how much weaponry you have. I would infer tool batteries and other things like that in the future. What is going on around you, and other fun things like communications, and most importantly, a mini-map, which will, as they note in this, not be every single ship and planetary landing location, but they're trying to get the bigger ones in, and as many ships as they can, and then each patch beyond here, they're going to, as they said, as Jared pointed out, mark up as much places as possible until all of Stanton is marked up, I'd assume, and Pyro, I'd assume, after that. And the minimap's critical because on larger ships, trying to find your way around, especially as a new crew member, or in the future, if something's broken on the ship, being able to identify and spot where that is, maybe in the future being able to place down a beacon so you can tell people to form up at the crew mess hall or something like that, will actually not be a game of trying to find peekaboo on a Carrack. You just literally see a ping and it's on the second floor, or you can hopefully even see other players, like where they are on the ship. So who's injured, who's not where they should be, who's running what, and is there somebody on the bridge to run the ship, and who should I be yelling to steer the ship to here or something like that, because we're about to hit something, whatever the case may be. Or also for landing, say, the Pisces inside the ship, being able to see what services are available at any given time. Right now, we're very visual. So you have to physically, if you don't see something physically, or you're not talking to each other on Discord or in the game's VoIP, you basically aren't talking. You don't know what's happening. So it's kind of, this is a welcome thing. Additionally, I hope to see more visor-based technology that will allow me to see what's around me without having to lock up ships. I hate doing that where I'm in a neutral environment or a friendly environment and I'm randomly locking people up, like a combat lock, just to be able to see how far away they are, or just to identify what type of ship it is, etc. When I know they're a friend, and it's like, oh, what are they in today? And I have to like literally ping them, and I'm like, this is, because they're not in party at that moment. It's unfortunate. I hope there's more of a situational awareness capacity where I don't have to sit there and do a huge scan or a ping, especially for friendlies, to have more visual acuity of what the heck's going on. And of course, the elephant in the room is the large StarMap upgrades. Being able to go into a basic search feature and type in something is great. If it breaks every now and then and is glitchy, that's okay too, because I'm sure that'll be improved over time. But more importantly, there is any work being done to make it more reliable, so I can click on a location that I know is right there and I'm staring right at, and I can hit set route and clear a route, and I don't have to worry about all sorts of workarounds and trying to hop in and out of seats and even have to jump in and out of a game just to be able to get my StarMap to work again. Is most welcome. Not having to hit the B key and spin an entire large ship around just to be able to find someplace blind because the route won't set is going to be very welcome. So yeah, quality of life improvements abound on this. Very interesting. Also, if you take a look at the CitizenCon videos and the way they're adding a scanning feature and what they call FPS scanner in the future, not for 3.23, they haven't said that, but eventually that will be in, and that will tie into your mini-map type technology and being able to see in that visor who's around you that's a threat, good guy, bad guy, what if there's anything interesting around, deposits wise. Very cool stuff.
distribution centers are now fully on track to come in Alpha 3.23.
Yep.
What can you tell me about what players can expect?
Okay, so just as a bit of background, the distribution centers are these massive facilities. They truly are really big, that are down on the surface of planets and moons and things like that. And they kind of are what they sound like, right? It's a center of distribution. Like, there are lots of landing pads. It should be a big hub of activity, basically. And there are a lot of different areas of the distribution center that are different from each other. So you've got the exterior, typically where people will be landing their ship, unloading cargo, things like that. You've got the offices up top, which is generally more of a front for whatever business or corporation has ownership of this place. And then you've kind of got more of the inner workings, which are kind of where you would typically expect to see cargo being ferried. If there's machinery that are producing stuff down there, if they're making something, then that would be where that's all tucked down. So what we're trying to provide for 323 is some variety between the different locations, so slightly different layouts between the different distribution centers, so they all feel a little bit different from each other. Have different factions at each of these places as well, which should give a very different feeling of what you're going to be doing there. So just as an example, and we talked about this recently, is you might have a law-abiding faction there, and typically you would be doing what you would expect to at a law-abiding place, where you would be trading, talking to people, things like that, all above board. If you're a pirate, you can obviously come and attack and cause trouble, but they might have security systems made to deal with you. You might also have a hostile faction that's take over one of these things that a corporation maybe previously had, and they came in and took over, and that would be a very combat-focused area for you to go and play in. And then you might have something that's more of a mix. So you go in, the front is very professional and business-like, but underneath, if you go a little bit deeper, you might find that they're up to no good.
Space wallet.
Yeah, so ultimately for the content we want to provide, the distribution centers have a lot of possibility, and there's no way that we're going to provide all of the content that we want to in one drop. But we definitely want you interacting there, doing cargo missions, and potentially some basic like combat missions and things like that to interact with all of the different areas of the distribution centers we're going to provide. But the future's very exciting for them.
And these are
big and diverse.
And these are humongous. These are the biggest thing we've done short of a landing zone.
Yeah.
They are massive. They are microcosms of the entire Star Citizen FPS experience. When I say FPS, I mean things not in a spaceship. There are missions. You'll get missions that will take you to these places. You'll go to these places to take to get missions that take you out. Some missions we'll be talking about these on ISC in just like 2 weeks, so I don't want to spoil everything. But some of the missions are self-contained within the distribution center. They're that big that you can do the entire loop within the distribution center.
Yep.
Hi, Daisy. They really are an exciting new addition, and 323 is not the end of them. Like I said, 323 is not the end of anything like this. They will continue to evolve beyond that. It's one of those things. I don't think we're ready to share that just yet, but there are some exciting plans for distribution centers. Beyond 323.
Better, something that is well thought out and well constructed than it come out early, I guess you could say. These distro centers are some of the first places outside of planetary landing locations, and when I keep saying those words, I mean like Orison, I mean Lorville, with their huge planetary landing locations with spaceports in them. And that's the scale that CIG keeps talking about these places at, and they're mostly underground with many layers to them, whole sneaking missions inside of them. That's all what they've described in the past, and they purposely designed where there's combat, sneaking missions, industrial contracts and such to do at these places, at least in the future. Possibly places to sell your stuff, pick up things to move, to sell, and transport for them. So a lot of different interesting things for players to congregate around. It'll also take some pressure off the planetary landing locations and offer us another kind of experience. If you're not really in the mood to go outpost to outpost, or you're really not a city slicker, you don't want to go anywhere near Area 18 or Lorville, these are just one more option that might be interesting for you to pursue for your gameplay for the night. Having a good time, exploring them, and trying to make some money while you're at it, hopefully, or do some nefarious purposes there as well. So very interesting stuff. I think the distro centers are a nice touch in the right direction. I've been saying for a while that it's really weird how space stations kind of are the only ones with like industrial feel to them at the scale that we're talking. Whereas when you go into New Babbage International Spaceport, Interstellar Spaceport, you go into MBIS and it's like, it feels like a fancy store for an electronics company. It doesn't feel like, a place where you'd see people going to go rock mining or some place where salvage crews are flying in reclaimers and landing and such. Or hauling convoys or staging out of most of the time. It felt like more of a finished location for higher value commercial clients and also residential slash people that are tourists and such going to shop at the Commons, going there for the satellite event of IAE because it's from another system. If you follow the lore, it felt more like that. Whereas, to be fair, you have places like Orison that have Providence platform that is literally constructing ships. You've got Cousin Crow's Customs retrofitting massive ships all the way up to capitals and such. That's a little different. But there isn't a lot of places that feel like that. Even Loreville doesn't feel like that where the ships are. They have these massive new industrial centers for Loreville 2.0, to their credit, that look, like they really fit the feel. And they have their huge scorching tanks of ridiculous chemicals and such, making all sorts of crazy weaponry and equipment and such. Look it up. Hearst Dynamics makes incredible weapons, including the Exodus laser beam, the size 10 laser beam for the Idris K kit that you will eventually be able to purchase in game, probably with a ton of rep and whatever else, probably, but it will be purchasable eventually in game, as promised by CIG. But the other thing, and the other equipment that comes in the Idris K kit as well, it's a parts kit. That's all it is. But the incredible weapon systems of Hurston for ships are pretty interesting, and they kind of led credence and understanding that it is truly an industrial site. It is a commercial geared towards dirty industrial sites, and it's profits above everything else type of feel. You get it, right? Whereas these distro centers, they are some of the only other tastes of this we're going to have, and I welcome them. And I'm glad that there's going to be different styles, different feels, different levels of compliance with UEE law. This is kind of what I'm inferring from some of this as they describe. Some of them might have a bit more of a industrial or criminal angle, which I think is fun. I think it's fun. The reason I'm going at that angle is I really do hope that there's a couple that are like taken over, like abandoned ones that are seedy, a little more seedy, because the wrecker yards that you sell stuff to when you're on the wrong side of the law with some interesting stuff are kind of like long in the tooth, and they're very small. It would be interesting to have new sites to fight over that are distros, but I'll leave that for another day, and that's just on my wish list. What we have in front of us right now is going to be the first installment for 3.23, if everything goes well, of these distro centers, and they're going to be massive, new, welcome places to add some new breath and life to Stanton.
Yeah, we've got the freight elevators. We've got the basically the instance hangars. So you're going to be able to go to your own hangar. You're going to have your freight elevator. You're going to be able to spawn your ship. The core part of the experience is that you essentially go to your freight elevator. We'll have a kiosk with a nice new UI on it. You can then interact with that to essentially go, what's in my storage? So the regular inventory area storage is going away. So it's much more physically based in your hangar storage. It's much more personal. You then go, I want all of this stuff. Click, 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 click. You fill up or see the freight elevator filling up on the UI. You then click a button and lo and behold, all your stuff's just come out the ground. And then it's up to you to load it into your ship. So as part of that, we'll also have things like hover trolleys. We've obviously got the tractor beam that's usable in there too. So you can then wheel it over, start loading up your ship. And it's a much more representative feel of what the cargo experience is going to be like long term.
I saved this one for last because it's near and dear to me, and I'm worried I'm going to talk a little bit. So I'm going to high level it first, and then I'm going to go into it a little bit more. Having the cargo elevators finally in for 3.23 is a major milestone for the game. Being able to actually itemize cargo and make it real is critical. And also it opens the door for having items that are subscriber gear and concierge and reward gear and holiday gear, etc. Referral stuff, everything being able to be retrieved back is important because the CIG has said in the past that it is directly tied to the cargo elevator. The very kiosk that he is describing in this is going to also do that. Now, what he has not said in this is that it will be doing that in 3.23. So just like everything that builds excitement, it is a question of, is this going to make 3.23? Is the ability to retrieve this type of gear something they're trying to hold back as a surprise for backers to get them excited? Is this something they're nervous about? Will they be able to do it or not? Is this something they're nervous about, like the equivalent of of trickery, where they can try to dupe items? So suddenly, I have a nice set of armor and I want to give it to all my friends. I can go out, drop it somewhere, they pick it up, and then I come back and get more. So is there going to be a cost associated, a timer for replacements, etc., etc., just like with chips, etc., etc.? So I'm curious to see what'll happen. It's entirely plausible. There's like a set price where you basically pay like as if you're buying the armor again, but it has that fancy finish but it's reduced price because the idea is it's just, you're not paying for the paint, you're just paying for the raw armor. But that might upset some players saying that no, I paid for this armor, I want full freight on it every time I lose it. Which then means I guess they'd put it on a timer if they're worried about people duping these items. So anyway, I'm not obviously using the word duping as in like they're cheating to purposely glitch the system. I'm talking about literally using the system as it's designed. Just so happens that they're putting stuff on the ground and then putting more down once that stuff is marked as no longer theirs when somebody else picks it up. So anyway, I think CIG is probably having some internal discussions about this as well, actually thinking this through. I'm sure their QA team, to their credit, is probably well ahead of me on this one. So with all that out of the way, I want to talk about the cooler thing. When you have cargo elevators functioning and cargo is actually implemented like this, it may take some time to load larger ships, even with those cool new trolleys and with the beautiful new two-hand tractor beam we have, etc., like the Cambrio SRT, and some other cool stuff. So what we need to think about here is it's going to take some time, and being able to do what he describes as spawn your ship within your instanced hangar is very good. So I want to bring that up, that an instanced hangar where you can spend as much time as you need to be able to work through the space is going to be very useful. And I think that's the future of the game in a nutshell. Even if that's all it does, that's extremely welcome. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, is just less is more. If they focus down just having good cargo elevator technology with a working kiosk, and I can spawn my ship, and I don't have an ATC on my back yelling at me and trying to find me and everything else just because I want to spend some time hanging out on my ship, that's a big step forward. It also means that multi-crew ships, or at least ships that have more than just a seat in a cockpit, are going to be that much more valuable, because it's going to be comfortable to hang out on. They're going to have food and water and hygiene, etc. And when you're waiting for your friends, you'll have something to do. You can tune your ship. You can load up cargo. You can go fix that module you've been meaning to get to. And I think that's going to be very useful. It's the kind of game I wanted it to be ages ago. I wanted years and years ago. I always hate trying to rush people or having to wait, standing by the ASOP terminal, just waiting and waiting and waiting until they finally get their act together and everybody's got their helmets on and everything else. And okay, we'll finally get over to the spaceport and now we can finally all go. And we spawn the ship and you play beat the clock. And I've noticed over the years, that clock's gotten longer and longer, but you're still tying up a valuable hangar. So I want to impart this. If CIG truly means in 3.23 not just to have the cargo elevator that is purposely set up in your hangar, but also have a persistent actual hangar, persistent hangar, at least the first iteration of it, like a rented hangar, so to speak. It's not going to be covered in your decorations unless that's something they're trying to hold back to surprise us again. Once again, I'm operating on less is more. What can they actually work on, and what do I expect to see in 3.23 if this is what they're trying to follow through with? I'm thinking bare bones, and then that all comes later. I want it too. I want to be able to decorate my hangar. I want to be able to use my hangar flare again. I want everyone to be able to rebuy it with UEC, hopefully in the future, in-game as well. So I want everyone to enjoy their fish tanks. I want it. I do. But what is practical for 3.23? And what I see is a cargo elevator that actually works with a working kiosk and people getting used to loading their cargo and trying to figure out how the best strategies for that, and working with the new cargo hover trolleys and such, probably of different sizes depending on the amount of cargo you use. Just a speculation part for me though. And being able to spawn a single ship at a time inside a hangar for as long as you want, and it will stay that way. And ideally, that instanced hangar will not change if you log off. So if you log off in that hangar with your cargo loaded into your ship, you can wake up back in the bed on that ship inside that instanced hangar, because it's no longer a drain on server resources. You're no longer in hangar 14 on tying up an entire important hangar that's there's only a finite number of, there's only 15 or 20 of them in the entire station of different sizes, etc. And when you start factoring that in, you can really be taking up something important. Instead, you're just another elevator. And yes, I just said the secret words here. You're just another elevator. So what instance hangars actually are is just picture a giant elevator. You're in a remote location waiting to be queued in, and you decide when you're queued in. So if you decide to leave on the elevator, the actual not cargo elevator, but the personnel elevator, that's when you start rejoining the real world. And if you decide to leave with the ship, that's when your elevator, that is your instance hangar, the actual big room you're in, suddenly it becomes real. When you go onto the comms and you request your ATC to open that door, you are being queued up into an open hangar door of an appropriate size for the hangar you're in the real terminal that you're at. So that's what you need to remember. One of the things that's interesting, and I don't know if they're going to be able to pull this off, is if they truly mean instance hangars and they truly mean it this way, one of the things they're going to have to pull together here is being able to visit friends' hangars. So if you're in a party, maybe the name of your friends will appear on the elevator's list. Or maybe there's a special elevator with a kiosk on it or something next to it, and then you queue it up and then it takes you there. Or maybe they just won't allow that at first until they can figure all that out. Once again, less is more. And I'm operating as this is not true persistent hangars with all the decorations and any additional spaces. If you remember back from the early days, I think of the Rivel and York hangars and the other big ones. They had 2 floors to them. They were huge, beautiful spaces. The internal area of the hangar had its own elevator to take you from the first floor to the second floor. And you could plop down, once again, fish tanks, decorative plants, all these types of ship models were there for you. You could place a whole thing full of them. All your collections. It was really cool. And even things like cots, workbenches that were supposed to allow for overclocking of ship modules. Yes, CIG, I haven't forgotten about that. And some other really interesting things that really never panned out, including my Hartwell piano, my 88G. And that was actually promised that would not just be able to go into the station, into the Phoenix, but it was supposed to be able to be put into your hangar. And that's why I actually picked one up, because it was supposed to be able to be used that way. I couldn't afford a Phoenix at the time, but I could afford the Hartwell, so that's what I picked up. To this day, I still have one, and that's kind of where I'm going to leave it. This is kind of I hope I checked as much bias as I could and tried to express, what I feel the general player is going to experience and desires out of this. But yeah, the cargo elevator. I think it would be a slam dunk if the cargo elevator's in, the ships don't time out. based on ATCs getting on them. Basically, that's the first thing about a persistent hangar, is that you can use it as long as you want, whenever you want. And the other third thing that really needs to be in, I really hope they nail down, is that through the cargo elevator, as promised, they will allow for recovery of things like subscriber gear, reward gear, holiday gear, etc., concierge gear, all that kind of stuff. So that would be a huge benefit. That's a huge thorn in the side of both players and CIG themselves. CIG makes these beautiful armor sets, and they give them away, or they sell them, and they use them as rewards, and then you'll get some for reputation too. And then if you lose it in live, you don't get it back until the next live patch. That sucks, unless you recover your body, etc., etc. You have friends that do it, and that's a big maybe. So yeah. It's less than ideal. For the PTU, as I've said many, many, many times, it doesn't matter, because the build's literally the next build, it'll refresh it. In fact, I use armor and weapons as a easy shortcut, so I can quickly jump into testing without having to run to different stores and figure things out and stuff. I just throw whatever gear I have on. I mix and match. I have a good time. If I die 10 times, I really don't care. Just some food for thought. All right. That's all I got from this one. I did mix in video from the Thursday show, just in case you didn't see it, to try to also, because it was very good for visuals, to kind of follow up on this summary type video. Some stuff was just more filler because I had to. There wasn't really anything to really put there. And once again, I highly encourage comments down below for discussion, or on Discord if you want to talk in private, or on Reddit if you prefer that platform. I'm perfectly fine with any of the three, and gladly, yes, people are still astonished to this day. I'll gladly talk your ear off. And you know, especially with the economy changes, I want to be available. If there's any way you think that I'll be able to help you out trying to get through this and plan out your fleet around those changes, especially, you know, what is worth keeping, what is not, for real world cash, you know, what's worth melting, you know, in anticipation for being cheaper or more expensive in game, what should I be picking up, things like that. If you have any thoughts like that, and you're just looking for another set of eyes at least, or another thoughts, feel free. And there's plenty of other creators as well that do the same thing that will gladly be able to help you out. And one final reminder, anybody who's starting out or is established, I'm always open to collabs, especially I'm always, that the worst thing I can do is tell you I don't have the time, or sorry, I can't help you with that. You know, obviously I keep them to myself. If you come to me with ideas and such, I won't like borrow them or anything like that. So feel free to reach out, and yeah, talk soon. Take care.